Tipping point. In some certain instant, tiger habitat became too fragmented to support them any longer. One further revelation of instability sparked a blind run on all their assets. One more tuna caught, and that species lacked a viable breeding population. One final gas price rise, and suddenly it's the end of giant SUVs and ugly pickups. A random plant closing, and our manufacturing base has finally disappeared. A millisecond more sawing, and that great hardwood can only fall. Once we began to melt the ice, the warming accelerated independently. One simple truth can ignite a revolution that repression can never halt. A bit warmer and the permafrosted bogs melt and let go all their methane. An insignificant gain begins to turn from utter defeat to certain victory. One more tiny plot cleared and the rainforest cannot ever stitch itself back together again. A final imagined insult brings the shooter back with murderous vengeance. A last drop of acid rain and the fish can no longer breed in yet another lake. An additional case turned the simple outbreak into a widespread epidemic. One thoughtless bandit trail crushed and isolated a soil microbe community. A single degree warmer and the pristine coral reef bleached and died. The first drop over the levee began an unstoppable flood upon the town. From the tiniest genetic alteration sprang the lethal pandemic virus. A last paved lot destroys its earthly sponge, and another river becomes just a sewer. A final engineering job outsourced, and Yankee ingenuity is just a tired legend. Just a tad warmer and the insects hatch before hungry songbird chicks are born. One more road built unleashes a gluttonous orgy of so-called development. A last paranoid nightlight hides the Milky Way in yet another shoddy and overpriced boomtown. Demand for one more gallon causes the price of oil to rise for years. A million ice floes, every one a bit smaller, and each polar bear gets a fewer seals. A final bit of overthrust and the plates slip, loosening the huge and deadly tsunami. Another mortgage rate reset, and one more hapless family walks away from its home. A last missed lesson and a blessed child cursingly gives up being literate. One more confounding issue, and literal scripture begins to make real sense. A final swig, and the drunken driver does not avoid the shuffling pedestrian. One more hit of meth, and it becomes the focus of someone else's life. A last gallon of fossil water sprayed into the hot wind, and the well goes dry. The desert expands just a tiny bit, and one more family cannot farm. Change the sixth decimal point of one physical constant, and there never was a universe. Just a moment's extra sun, and cancerous skin lesions are guaranteed. A single catchy slogan transforms the rowdy crowd into an angry mob. A single case of counter evidence, and the entire theory must be abandoned. One more repetition and their lying, self-serving propaganda becomes a true gospel. Another day of sunshine and bureaucrats declare the drought official. One more night of a slow disease progression and that man never walks again. The sight of one more disaster and agnosticism gains another follower. A last new strip mall and a tourist trap becomes a pointless exurban tumor. Still another aching joint and he realizes he has become old and weak. Suddenly another senseless bombing finally begins the long-awaited war. One more small deception exposed, and all their belief is suspended. During some recordable instant, the illiterates and evangelicals regained the majority. One day it simply became acceptable to print every sign in Spanish. A single survey first revealed the appearance of a negative savings rate. Just another drop lost, and the patient's blood pressure plummeted. One final fused hydrogen atom and the sun no longer sustains its reaction. There's that one extra mouthful after which it all gets stored as useless fat. There is an instant in which daydreaming turns into that gentle beginning of sleep. The first time the snow changes to rain early in the spring. The moment when the impossible first starts to become the unavoidable. That hard day when prayer becomes a refuge from haunting reason. That final repetition that morphs honest patriotism into ignorant arrogance. A surprising upset that somehow begins an inevitable string of hard defeats. That moment of conception that ensures a rendezvous with the void, just irreversible tipping points, retreating on beyond our short event horizons.